the world of tennis just fell apart. Not due to doping, not due to match fixing, and not due to any previous scandal. This is something much darker. Something that has been simmering beneath the surface of professional tennis for years has suddenly burst in the most dramatic way imaginable. We are discussing the harsh, soul-crushing pressure that budding stars face when they dare to shine too brightly. The moment they challenge the status quo and inspire people to believe in something different. Alexandra Eala is her name. She is 20 years old. Her home country is the Philippines. And right now, she's at the very center of a firestorm that's making headlines throughout the entire sports world because it's so fierce, poisonous, and potentially career-destroying. However, this is when the story takes a turn that no one anticipated. Tennis's finest combatant to date. Beside her, a guy who has spent more than 20 years defining what it is to be a champion just stepped right into the line of fire. It's Rafael Nadal in the arena. Furthermore, he is not merely making a kind defense of his pupil, he is criticizing a poisonous culture as a whole. And he's doing it with all the power of his famous reputation behind him. This is the narrative that is currently dominating tennis. This is the drama that divides fans, has social media in complete mayhem, and has everyone, from casual onlookers to ardent tennis enthusiasts, picking sides and getting ready for a fight. This goes beyond a single game, tournament, or even the career of a single player. This relates to the sport's own future. Regarding the viability of young talent in the meat grinder of contemporary stardom. About whether the very athletes we claim to love watching are being destroyed by social media because it has become so poisonous. The preparations for this disaster started out rather innocently. January 10, 2026, Auckland, New Zealand. In the weeks leading up to the Australian Open, the ASB Classic was playing out like any other warm-up competition. For the first Grand Slam of the year, players were testing their skills, getting over their rust, and attempting to get some momentum. It was meant to be standard procedure. It was meant to be unforgettable. Rather, it served as the starting point for one of the most interesting and contentious stories tennis has created in recent memory. Outside of ardent tennis circles, Alexandra Eala was relatively unknown when she first came in Auckland. Yes, her training at the Rafael Nadal Academy was well known. Indeed, there were rumors about her potential, her left-handed style of play, and her seeming youthful tactical intelligence. She wasn't anticipated to cause a stir though, as she was only outside the top 50 at the beginning of the week. Before she went completely insane, she was simply another young player attempting to climb the rankings and demonstrate that she deserved at this level. Donna Vake, a veteran from Croatia who had just months prior won a silver medal at the Olympics, was her first notable victim. Vic wasn't a weakling. She was a seasoned top 30 player with a solid track record, years of experience on the circuit, and a knack for winning games. It was anticipated that Ella's youth would be overwhelmed by her experience and that the event could be too significant for the 20-year-old. Rather, Eala disassembled her. Straight sets, clinical, self-assured, and utterly commanding. Not even close. The tennis community began to take notice. Social media began to buzz. Filipino supporters went completely insane as they waited impatiently for a tennis player they could genuinely claim as their own. This was more than a victory. This was a declaration. On a major platform, a teenage tennis player from a country with almost no tennis infrastructure defeated an Olympic medalist. Ella wasn't done, though. She played the cunning Polish veteran Magda Linette in the quarterfinals, who was renowned for her ability to irritate opponents, grind them down, and make games difficult and ugly. These players are precisely the ones who showcase youthful talent and show who is ready for the tour and who still needs to grow. Eala accomplished more than just make it through this test. She was outstanding. Commentators were genuinely taken aback by her tactical knowledge. In between sets, she adjusted. She was a pattern reader. She carried out a strategy with the level of sophistication typically reserved for players 10 years older. Alexandra Eala had formally arrived by the time she left the court following her victory over Linette. She broke into the top 50 for the first time in her career, according to the live rankings. She was the tournament's big story, the player that everyone was talking about, and the one who had tennis reporters rushing to find out more about her training, background, and style of play. The tale of Cinderella was finished. The tennis star of the Philippines had been discovered. Everything was flawless. It was all magical. The semi-final then took place. China's Wang Gu stood on the other side of the net. Another young Asian celebrity attempting to achieve her own success. What transpired was an actual war of attrition between two players who would not budge. The demonstrations were violent and protracted. The exchanges at baseline were harsh. With the kind of passion that makes tennis entertaining to watch, both players were digging deep and fighting for every point. It was tight. It was competitive. It was a match that could have gone either way. Wang was somewhat better on this specific day, slightly more composed when the pressure rose, and slightly more steady in the pivotal moments. Aya used every resource at her disposal to fight, but it was insufficient. She was defeated by a strong opponent in a fiercely heated semi-final. This would have been the conclusion of the tale in any logical reality. After a breakthrough week, a young player advances to the WTA tournament semi-finals, loses a close match to another up-and-coming talent, and advances to the next event with a career-high ranking. That's how it ought to have operated. Before social media transformed every sporting event into a character referendum, that is how it would have operated. Before algorithms discovered that anger leads to interaction. Before nameless strangers felt empowered to analyze and demolish athletes from the comfort of their laptops. The avalanche started just minutes after the last point was played. Twitter blew out. Venomous Instagram videos on TikTok began to surface with titles like Eala Exposed and The Truth About Rafa's Overrated Prospect. Tennis-related Facebook groups turned into battlegrounds of divergent viewpoints and escalating personal assaults. Suddenly, every platform and area of the tennis internet was inundated with criticism that went so far beyond typical sports analysis that it was no longer identifiable as sports commentary at all. This wasn't disgruntled supporters venting their frustration after a defeat. This was not a tactical conversation about what went wrong or what could have been done differently. This was something more sinister and intimate, with a quickness and viciousness that seemed almost synchronized. The remarks were quite hurtful. Eala has no substance and is just hype. Nadal is the only reason she receives attention. A typical overconfident prospect who falters under actual circumstances. She is not a champion, she is a marketing tool. False pretender, uncovered fraud. Flood after unrelenting flood of words continued to flow. Every one of them cuts more than the last. They were all aimed at a 20-year-old woman who had just spent a week playing the best tennis of her life. In front of everyone, the story changed in real time. All of a sudden, her amazing run to the semi-finals was no longer the story. It had nothing to do with her high professional ranking. It had nothing to do with her triumphs over seasoned players, her tactical prowess, or her breakthrough week. All of that was no longer relevant. The loss was the only thing that mattered. Her purported mental fragility, her inability to handle pressure, and her failure to live up to expectations that, quite frankly, no one had placed on her until roughly 72 hours ago were the only topics of conversation. The entire unpleasant story was perfectly captured in one especially nasty reply. Naturally, it became extremely popular. Eala is not a champion. Rather, she is a marketing tool for the Rafa Nadal Academy. She always folds when the actual pressure is applied. Get folks to wake up. Thousands upon thousands of people liked that one comment. Hundreds more people retweeted it. Every tennis forum, discussion board, and Facebook group devoted to the sport shared a screenshot of it. Everyone who wished to destroy her used it as a rallying cry. The pylon was unrelenting. Just a few days prior, fans who had been applauding her wins and sharing heart emojis and Filipino flags were now doubting everything about her game, her personality, and whether or not she should even be brought up in discussions about budding stars. The turn's quickness was quite startling. It was overwhelming in its entirety. For a brief minute, it appeared as though Alexandra Aya would be buried beneath this deadly wave before she could even recover her breath or comprehend what was going on. But then an amazing event happened. Something that served as a reminder to the entire tennis community of why Rafael Nadal is not just one of the sport's greatest champions but also one of its finest leaders. One of its most significant voices when anything goes wrong, one of the few individuals with the authority and guts to speak up doesn't do this. Anyone who follows tennis is aware of this. He is renowned for being extremely secretive about his personal life, He is meticulous in his public remarks. He is always measured and diplomatic, and he always chooses his words with extreme precision. He stays out of disputes. He stays out of arguments on social media. He doesn't fight other people's battles with his platform. He lets his racket speak for itself, stays in his lane, and concentrates on his tennis and academy. However, things were different this time. This time, he witnessed one of his trainees being assaulted and ripped apart by a mob mentality that had nothing to do with tennis and everything to do with the worst parts of online culture. And he came to the conclusion that it was enough. Only a few hours after the game concluded, the post appeared on his official social media platforms. No corporate jargon permitted by PR. No meticulously planned marketing message created by a group of experts. Rafa being Rafa, straightforward, truthful, and strong in his simplicity. A loss does not define a player's value, he added. The manner in which you get back up. That spirit is what tennis needs, not preconceived notions. Eala, keep fighting. This wasn't merely a kind gesture or fleeting message of support, so let's take a moment to truly comprehend what had transpired. This was a well-thought-out, deliberate comment from someone who knows precisely what it's like to be in Eala's shoes, has experienced similar pressures of his own, and has been dismissed, questioned, and criticized numerous times in his professional life. First of all, a player's worth is not determined by a loss. Nadal is speaking from 2 decades of experience at the pinnacle of professional tennis. He has lost games. He didn't win the finals. Injuries have ruined entire seasons for him. Critics have questioned whether he was done, whether his body could sustain it, and whether his style of play would be effective on faster surfaces. He has a deep understanding of what it's like to deal with uncertainty and criticism. He is reminding everyone, and Eala in particular, that tennis is a long game. In the context of a career, that one outcome is completely meaningless. That your response is the only thing that counts. The